Well, good evening. Good evening, Discovery Center viewers. I am Laura Burton here with the Kansas Children's Discovery Center. We are on Facebook Live this evening, and we are joined by a very special guest, Josie Dease from Seaman Schools. We are going to ask her a ton of questions about getting our kids ready for preschool and everything they need to know. She has a lot of great specialized expertise. I will tell you everything you need to know about Josie in just a moment. But first, just to give people a few minutes to tune in, a quick Discovery Center update. We are still working to get reopened fully here at the Discovery Center. We're currently open outdoors for time-ticketed entry. We know it's a pretty cold week and maybe not as fun this week to explore the outdoor classroom. We're hoping it warms up and we can get some kids back outside, especially to play with some of our new things like our new texture kitchen and our stage and dramatic play area and our really giant Lincoln logs. That's my favorite thing we've added outside recently. They're like these 6-foot-tall Lincoln logs. Kids are going to love them. So when things warm up, we'll look forward to having you back outside, and we're still working to get everybody inside just as soon as we can. In the meantime, if you want to support the Discovery Center, just a reminder that we are selling Discovery kits, and we have a special Valentine's Day one that I am so excited about. These heartastic Discovery kits are a whole box full of fun science things for kids of all ages. They include science and engineering and math activities that have some fun Valentine's elements. We've got some hearts in there. We've got some ways to make Valentines, but also teaches kids about their awesome heart and how it works and how it functions and all the cool things it does in the body. So definitely check out kansasdiscovery.org/kits to learn more about those. But without further delay, let's get on to the information tonight because we have so much exciting stuff to share with you. And I'm thrilled we've been joined by Josie Dease from Seaman Schools. I want to tell you a little bit about her so you have a sense what kinds of questions she can answer for you. So Josie is an early childhood special education teacher from Seaman, that's USD 345. So Seaman parents out there, thanks for joining us. We are excited to have you. She has been in education for 5 years. She holds a BS in vocal music and a BS in elementary education from Washburn University, fellow Ichabod, glad to hear it, and an MS in early childhood education from Emporia State University. Josie,
Go Bods.
Thank you. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. So she redeemed herself there. Josie's current role is as transition teacher at Mathis Early Learning Centers, and she focuses on managing transitions from home-based infant toddler services to center-based preschool services. She really loves that role because it blends all her favorite aspects of education, family and community partnerships, meaningful student relationships, and developmentally appropriate individualized education. So Josie really loves working with those individual families, individual kids, and finding some educational solutions that work for them. We're very excited to have her for that reason. She joins us as the second part 2, the sequel, if you will, in our Building Readers series. Last year, I should say. It feels like last year. It was actually just last week. We had an educator from Topeka Public Schools. And once you tuned in for this one, you should definitely join us next week when we will have Veronica Bird from Parents as Teachers joining us. But without further delay, let's move on to Josie. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yes. Josie and I were talking before the broadcast. Josie is an educator with so much expertise. She's also a parent. She and I both have 3-year-old kiddos running around at home all over the place. So this knowledge, we can certainly speak to things as people who work in education, but also as moms. And Josie understands the struggle of being a parent and how hard that can be. But Josie, let's start big and then we'll get into much more specific stuff. Can you just tell me in a really broad level, what can a parent do at home to try to make sure their kiddo is ready for preschool?
Sure. So at Mathis Early Learning Center, I think that we put more of the focus on how we can be ready for the kiddos that are coming to us. Every kiddo is different. I think that it's always a question that parents ask themselves if they think their kids are ready for preschool. But in our programs at Mathis, we really try to think more about how can we be ready for each of the individual children that come to us, and how can we make them super excited about school. So I think that something that I like to tell parents is, to just try to get your kiddo excited about coming to preschool. That's the most important thing that we can help them learn at preschool, is that school is fun and school is a safe, fun, exciting place to be. And so having those important parent partnerships that, we build from teacher to parent, and just making sure we're consistent in making preschool fun and exciting, and making sure we're modeling that for them is, I think, the best way that they can be ready.
That is such a great answer. And I love hearing that because, I think a lot of parents, and I know I've been in this trap before too, Josie, you've got the expertise, so I'm sure you know better. But a lot of us fall into this trap where we feel like getting our kids ready for a preschool means that they know all their shapes and they know their ABCs and they can, do basic algebraic equations before they start preschool. Like, we have these ideas that we have to get them in an academic place. And I think this is a trap parents fall into for both preschool and kindergarten. But what you're telling me is it's really about getting them pumped for school.
Absolutely. I just love seeing the kids walk in first thing in the morning. That is my favorite part of our day. Our kids come in, they go to their classrooms, they're excited to be there. They're walking in to see their teachers with smiles on their faces and just ready for the day. And if they can start their day with excitement, then we can take them all the important places that we need to take them at preschool if they're excited about being there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a wonderful message, and I think really empowering too. So just making sure that kids have the ability to go in and feel really good about their day, I think that's an awesome thing. And that's something I can do. I can handle that. Not so much the algebraic equations, but I can handle getting my kid excited about school and pumping my kid up for school. So that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about Mathis Early Learning Center. Do you generally meet with all the families when they're considering preschool there? What families are you working with at the center? And tell me a little bit about what it's like.
Sure. So I'll talk kind of generally about our programs at Mathis. We are an inclusive preschool. So that means that in all of our classrooms, we have children with that receive special education services. We have children who qualify as at risk, and then we have community children who don't qualify for either of those things. So we have all of those children all together learning the same things in the same classroom, but we really take into consideration each individual child's needs, and then meet each individual child as well, while they're all learning alongside each other. It's a really cool atmosphere, and it's just a really neat thing to see all of the children learning together in the same environment. So our programs are half day. We have 3-year-olds in the morning and 4-year-olds in the afternoon. We also have one full day classroom that operates at Mathis. It's a new program this year, and it's a really exciting program. A lot of people, would like full day preschool. So we do offer that for a limited number of students based on need and enrollment, the enrollment applications. And then my program is the transition program. So I personally work with students who are transitioning from infant toddler services or tiny K services to preschool services. And my program, we do meet with each of the families that are thinking about transitioning their children from infant toddler services to preschool services. And we kind of get to give them an overview of what Mathis is like, and get to talk about each of the individual children, and parents get to ask us questions about the things that we're talking about tonight. Do you think my kiddo is ready? These are my concerns. What are the next steps? And we're able to kind of talk through that in my program with the kiddos transitioning from infant toddler to preschool. So those are kind of all the different kinds of programs we have going on in Mathis.
Yeah. Thank you. That gives me a billion more questions to answer, but I'm sure many of or to ask, I should say. But I'm sure many of our folks who are watching might have some as well. So just a reminder for those of you who are out there watching, friends, post in the comments if you have questions for Josie, and she will answer those live. We'll pass those along to her and make sure she gets those. So if you have any questions, just post them down there in the comments and we'll get those pulled up. But let's talk about the families you work with specifically, Josie, those families that are transitioning from the tiny K services into preschool. What are some of the most common concerns you hear from those families? Of course, really diverse needs, right? But I'm sure they have some things in common in terms of their worries and their concerns about readiness. What are you hearing from them?
Absolutely. So the kiddos that are transitioning are typically transitioning before they're 3 because we are our services have to be in place by the time they turn 3. So typically they're starting at 32, 33, 34 months. And they're really little, so a lot of the concern is, I'm sending my teeny tiny child to preschool, and it's hard. The separation is hard. And that's another thing that we commonly talk about in transition meetings is, I have not been away from my child yet. Like going to school is going to be a brand new experience for not only my child, but myself as well. And so, just knowing that you can trust us at Mathis, we handle separation anxiety a lot with kiddos and with parents, and it's hard. I had a hard time setting my own kiddo to preschool for the first time this year, and I'm in the building with him, but it's just something about, I know he's going to a great place, and we just try to encourage parents and say that, we, just like you, have your kiddo's best interest at heart, and we, want to see all the absolutely wonderful things that they're going to be able to show us at preschool. And we also keep an open line of communication and make sure that we're communicating with each other to kind of ease those worries.
Yeah. Man, I wonder if you could speak more to separation. That is such a common question for all parents. The idea of separation from our preschool kiddos. And I think especially right now, when, it used to be 2 years ago, a preschool kiddo might have had some more experiences separating from mom and dad leading into preschool, might have had some day camps or some a little bit of more time with family members and time out in the community. So many of our littles have been essentially at home with mom and dad working from home for a year. Mm-hmm. So I think for many of us, that adds a layer of concern around separation issues. What are your tips for parents who are concerned about their kids' ability to separate, but both in terms of preparing their kids for preschool and also that morning when you're going to drop them off? What are some tips you have to help?
So being prepared before that morning is probably my best tip. As soon as you decide that your kiddo is going to attend preschool and you have a start date and you know when that start date is going to be, starting that conversation immediately is really important. And modeling, like we talked about it earlier, modeling that excitement about school is really important because your kiddos are watching you. They can see if you're having second thoughts or anxiety about going to school, and they sense that. So just making sure that you're talking to them about how exciting school is. Talk to them about some of the things that they'll be doing at school. I typically, if I have parents that are especially concerned about their kiddo going to school, I have something called a social story. So it's a story about what it's going to be like coming to school in our classroom at Mathis. And so I would encourage parents not to be scared to reach out to your teacher, reach out to your school and ask for those things if you're nervous about your kiddo not separating well, and just making sure you're having those conversations often, and counting down the days to when they start so it's not a surprise, and making sure, you answer all their questions as best you can, and again, just model that excitement.
So day of, when I drop my kid off and they seem sad, what do I do?
It's going to be it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. Watching your kiddo be scared to walk into a building with somebody they don't know. But the best thing to do, again, is just to be encouraging and trust that the staff at Mathis is going to do absolutely what's best for your kiddo. Often when I get kiddos that are a little sad when they start, I'll make sure to snap a picture of them once they get in the classroom and are doing things and are excited, and make sure I send it to parents, just because that is really hard, being away, not knowing what's happening. So, making sure we're kind of easing those worries, as they come in the classroom, I think is also important. And again, don't be scared to ask for those things either. Your teachers want you to be comfortable as much as they want your kiddo to be comfortable. So, not being scared to ask for things like that.
That's a great teacher pro tip there about the picture. I bet there are some teachers out there taking notes about that one. Very good idea. And it can be hard to walk away, but it's totally okay. It's okay to cry in your car, moms and dads, after you drop off the kid. It's also okay to celebrate in your car after you drop off the kids.
Every kiddo's different. Every parent's different. Some kiddos, are fine as soon as they walk in the door and they see all the bright colors and all the classrooms and all the other kids and they're excited. And some kiddos, it takes a little bit longer. And parents are the same way. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, to speak specifically to some of those families you work with that have some special education needs, what if my child needs speech assistance, or if I'm concerned my kiddo is not developing in the way that I would expect them to, or like other children are? What do I do if my kid is getting to 3 and 4 and I just don't feel like they're developing in the same way that I would expect?
Sure. So again, at Mathis Early Learning Center, a third of our student population have special education services, receive special education services. And so it's something that our teachers are very well versed in. All of our teachers at Mathis Early Learning Center are special education teachers, early childhood special education teachers. And so they are trained to kind of, track development. We use assessments to track progress and things like that. And so teachers may reach out to parents and say, we are interested in potentially what we would call a screener. So we would screen children for any developmental delays that they could potentially have. But you are also welcome, again, to reach out to your teacher. If you're having concerns, let your teacher know that, and they can kind of give you your options. But at Mathis, when you're getting ready to enroll, we ask you to make a screening appointment. So we can go ahead and provide that screener before you enroll, just so we can see if there are any potential developmental delays. So the screener we use is called the Dial-4, and it looks at all 5 areas of development. So that's fine motor, gross motor, adaptive, which is self-help skills, social emotional skills, and I am forgetting one. Speech and communication, and then also cognitive. So our motor skills are kind of one domain area, but so we look at all those areas and we screen for potential delays. So just because our screener might indicate that there are potential delays doesn't necessarily mean that there are, but that's why it's called a screener. We kind of screen to see if there are delays. So, and in the event that there are, our teachers can provide an evaluation to determine whether or not there are some delays, and the evaluation would determine whether or not they might qualify for special education services. The really cool thing about Mathis is that we have related service providers on site. So we have 2 amazing speech language pathologists. Our OT and PT staff are on site. We have a social worker on site. We have lots of related service providers in the building to, help us make sure that all our kiddos are getting what they need.
I'm so glad you spoke to the level of resources and expertise in that building to help support kids, because I know, as a parent, when you are suspecting there might be a delay or they might be something wrong, that's a scary thing for a parent. And sometimes I think it's tempting for a parent to say, they'll figure out eventually, it's not something I want to talk about. It's not something I want to identify. I think there's a fear among some parents about getting their kid a label of some kind. I think there are some real fears for parents. So can you talk a little bit about the value of early intervention and knowing those things and how that helps kids?
I could talk all day about the value of early intervention. It is so important. And the most important thing that we like to emphasize about early intervention is that the power of it is that if we can get in there early and address some of those concerns, there's a greater potential that we may not need to continue services into elementary school, into middle school. And of course, there's always cases where, kiddos are going to need support to be able to be successful. But that is at the core of all intervention. It's to help your kiddos be successful. We never want to make your kiddos uncomfortable by providing services. I think that our staff does an amazing job, providing services in a way, again, to just make kiddos successful and not, make them feel singled out or something like that. Our related service providers and our special education staff, do a great job making kiddos feel so special. All kiddos have super special things about them. And I think everybody at our building does a really good job making sure that kiddos feel special, not singled out or anything like that. So, and again, early intervention, it's so powerful to get in there as kiddos are developing instead of on the back end of things. So.
Well, that's really well put. And yes, and I can listen to you talk about the power of early intervention all night. That's awesome information. And again, empowering for parents because the resources are available for you, right? Like you guys are the pros. You have so much awesome information in that building, and your parents are very lucky to have all that expertise that is available to them at their fingertips. It's awesome that they can ask for help. I wonder if you could speak a little bit to, because one thing that I think is so cool about Mathis is that inclusive model. So the fact that you have community children and children who are at risk, and you sort of intentionally have a mix of those children. I wonder if you can speak to the benefits of that for all the kids that are in the program. What's the benefit for a community kiddo being in an inclusive preschool? What's the benefit for a kiddo who needs some interventions being in a community preschool or being in an inclusive preschool? Can you talk a bit about that model? Because I find that really interesting.
Absolutely. And I think that, all kiddos can always learn from each other. We can all always learn from each other, right? And so having that inclusive model allows children to view children who are different than them and see, the power in that. The power in our differences is something, that has come up often now. We talk about the power in our differences, and we kind of live that every day at Mathis. There are so many benefits from kiddos learning alongside kiddos that are different than them, and I think it just sends a message that we're all different, but we're all so much the same at the same time. And everybody's just kind of benefiting from each other's differences, and it's just a really cool thing to see these, 3 and 4-year-olds just being together and not even really noticing when they're different and not understanding how much they're learning from each other's differences.
That's wonderful. That's such an interesting model, and I think so awesome for little kids. Some logistics for some of our Seaman parents that are tuning in. I doubt you guys have like enrollment deadlines and that kind of stuff worked out, but can you give us a sense of what ages of kiddos should we be looking to get enrolled in preschool? What does that process look like in the Seaman district? Give us kind of the crash course of, I'm in the Seaman district, I'm interested in preschool. What does that look like for me?
Absolutely. So the very first thing you should do is call Mathis Early Learning Center and schedule a screening appointment. We can screen kiddos beginning at age 3. So as soon as your kiddo turns 3, even before your kiddo turns 3, you can give us a call and schedule a screening appointment. We do screenings the first Wednesday of each month in the morning. And at that screening appointment, we'll discuss results and could potentially offer immediate enrollment. We could potentially offer enrollment for the following year, depending on the screening. But we accept kiddos all the way up to the year before kindergarten. So, at times we're screening kiddos in March that are going to kindergarten. So there's really kind of no cutoff until, kiddos are ready to go to kindergarten, and we start at age 3.
Wow, that's fabulous. So if you've got a 3-year-old and you're in the Seaman district, you need to give Mathis a call, right, to set up that screening. What is that screening looking like right now? Are we doing that in person? Are you doing that virtually? Are there elements of that? How have we had to adapt to make it work safely?
Sure, we are doing it in person. We ask everybody that attends our building to wear a mask. And we also do temperature checks as they check in. We keep everything socially distant. So we are, doing our screening socially distanced. And we do ask that parents come. There's some paperwork that you need to fill out. It's actually a couple surveys about your kiddo while you're there. And so parents are in our multi-purpose room filling out paperwork while the kiddos are going around to screening. And we just keep everything distant and safe and, we are in person doing screenings. So.
That's awesome. And are the kids currently doing in-person school in Seaman? Okay.
Mathis has been full on site since September.
Okay. Wow. So you guys have been able to keep kiddos. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
How do you think, if the kids are in in-person school, I'm sure they're experiencing less of this. And of course, you're working with little kids, but how do you think the past year and how do you think COVID has impacted some of these little kiddos? Has it had a developmental impacts? Are they asking questions about it? How has that affected kids?
I really think about it for my own kids a whole lot. I have a 5-month-old daughter. I even think about, when my son was 5 months old, he had seen and done so many more things. So I think that, of course, it's affecting our children. But I think that, we just have to kind of move forward and keep finding ways to make sure that our kiddos are getting what they need. And in the Seaman district, we have felt that, our kiddos are on site and our mitigation strategies are working. And that's been a really positive thing for our kiddos to be able to be together. But I absolutely think that it has affected everyone. And so just continuing to move forward and finding ways to continue to help your kiddos develop at home. If you're not out and about, if you're not in in-person school, you are your child's best teacher. Even not in COVID, parents are their child's best teacher. So just taking it into your own hands, doing research, and finding ways to keep your kiddos active at home is a great way to make something good out of the situation we've kind of found ourselves in.
I agree. Those are some great tips. And of course, those of you who regularly keep up with us here on Facebook from the Discovery Center know that we have a boatload of free at-home educational activities at Discovery at Home. And you can access those on our website at kansasdiscovery.org/home or kansasdiscovery.org/CASA for our bilingual activities. There are over 170 now at-home activity videos. They just keep piling up because our education team is coming up with ideas every second of cool things you can do at home. They're all designed to be done with the supplies you already have. So yeah, check that out. That's good stuff. We've got an awesome question here from Sandra, and Sandra says, and it cuts off a little, so I'll read the rest of it. But Sandra says, my youngest is going to Mathis, yay, Sandra, next year. And my youngest, and this is something we addressed a little bit earlier, but you might have some more tips specifically for her situation. My youngest has separation anxiety and may have autism. What should we do over the summer to help him with his separation anxiety? So she's thinking long-term. Way to go, Sandra, thinking far out. We think that's great. Any tips for her, Josie?
Absolutely. So again, that social story that I talked about what school looks like is, something that can absolutely be utilized. It's never too early to start that. The more you can, kind of remind a kiddo or get it in their head what school is going to look like, the more used to the idea they can get, the easier it's going to be. And then again, modeling that excitement about going to school is going to be important. Siblings, if you have siblings that are going to school, make sure you're talking to them and saying, look, your brother or your sister is going to school soon. That's going to be you. And just making sure that they, see that other people are going to school too, and it's going to be their turn, and it's an exciting thing. But just again, talking about it, making sure that you are, make sure they know that they're going to go to school and that's going to be an exciting place.
That's awesome. That's great. And we're so glad we have one of your families tuning in. I'm sure we have more than that. If you're either attending Mathis or if you have before, if you're a Mathis graduate, give us a shout out in the comments. Let us know. Say hello. I'm sure Josie would love to hear from any families that she's been working with. And we'd love to be able to say hi because I'm sure there are so many littles who have come through there over the years who are doing awesome, awesome things in elementary school and beyond. It's a great place. Let's talk a little bit more about a typical day at Mathis. Could you kind of take us through, you'd mentioned earlier, and I love this because I can absolutely see this happening, that your favorite part of the day is when the kids come in, right? And they are just full of excitement and energy for the day. So that's the high point, right? Is you're getting all these high energy kids. And as a parent like me with 1 3-year-old, I can't imagine having tons. So I am just fascinated with how you manage these groups of kids and what you do in the course of a day to keep them busy, happy, occupied, and learning. What does a day look like?
Absolutely. So we have an amazing staff at Mathis. So each classroom has a teacher and 2 paras. And I think every teacher would tell you that they could not survive the day without both of their paras in their classroom. And so we're really lucky to be really well staffed. So a typical day at Mathis, the kiddos come in from either the car line or the bus line. They're excited to be there. We immediately wash hands when we get into the classroom. And typically we start with table time. We play with some table toys. We might do a large group next. So that looks like, being on the carpet, greeting each other, talking about what we're going to do for the day. The next part of the day kind of tends to shift depending on who the teacher is. But after that, we also do, we have a recess. We have a snack time. We do small group activities. Each teacher does 3 small groups a day. And so during that time is when we're working on some of those, developmental skills, working on some of the academic skills, I guess, that we talked about earlier, shapes, colors, numbers, things like that. We also work on a lot of fine motor skills like cutting, stringing beads, things like that. The things that I guess you would typically think that a preschooler would do at preschool are typically done during those small group times. We do a lot of movement and music. We sing, we dance, and we have a good time. And the most important part of our day is our center time. It's our free play time. It's our time for our kids to choose where they'd like to play, how they want to play with each other, play with their teachers. It's such a powerful time. Play is the most important thing for kids right now as they're developing. And they learn so much from playing with each other and from playing with us. And my favorite thing about the day is definitely watching them come in. But my favorite part of our day that we are doing together is that center time. They make their best discoveries during that time, seeing their light bulb moments as they're discovering for themselves things that they weren't intending on learning that day, is just the absolute best time of the day. So that's kind of the things that we typically do in a day, and then we pack up and get ready to go home.
And that sounds fabulous. As I'm listening to you, one thing that strikes me is I'm not hearing that kids are sitting in orderly rows and looking at flashcards. Sometimes we hear from parents, and I know I've thought this, we've wondered if our kids are ready for preschool because they're not very good at sitting still, right? I mean, my 6-year-old is still not very good at sitting still. So it sounds like that's not really an expectation for you guys, that you have them up and moving a lot, that your kid is not sitting a lot during the day. So is it fair to say that if they're wiggly, they're still ready for preschool?
They're still ready. We're ready for them. And we talk about, we are a public school. We talk about our state standards a lot, the Kansas Early Learning Standards. And really, it's not developmentally appropriate for a kiddo to sit and attend to an activity for 5 minutes until they're 4. So, I mean, and that's for a typically developing child. So some will and some won't, and that's okay. But the things that we really do to try to help our kiddos is we really try to be routine. We try to keep our day the same every day so they know what to expect. That kind of limits their anxiety a little bit, their need to kind of wiggle and move around. But we also are a pretty fast-paced schedule. We have a pretty fast-paced schedule for the day, so we're changing activities a lot. Our staff is pretty sensitive to the needs of their classrooms, and they kind of can sense when they need to move on to a new activity. So we're not sitting on the carpet very long.
I love hearing that. And you speak so well about the power of play and the importance of that. Of course, we're huge believers in that at the Discovery Center for obvious reasons. We know kids learn best through play. So it's wonderful to hear that in an educational setting, in addition to how we see it in informal settings like the museum. Kids playing learn so much. That's their work, and that's how they gain information. And it's wonderful to hear that. It sounds like you guys are doing a great job with play and encouraging kids to do that.
Absolutely. And our social worker actually has a certificate in play therapy. She's done trainings. And so she, has a lot of knowledge that she shares with our staff. And, we constantly talk about the power of play.
I love that. We have a couple of awesome audience shout outs here. Karen Williams is saying, great job, Josie. So thanks for tuning in.
Karen's our principal.
I love it. Karen, it sounds like Josie and the rest of your team are doing an awesome job over at Mathis. Great work to everybody over there. And thanks for tuning in. And we also have Sandra again, who says that her oldest son also attends over there. So that's great. You were talking about the power of siblings to help with that separation anxiety, and that the older kiddos going can really help the younger kiddos get excited about school. It sounds like Sandra has a great opportunity there with her older kiddo going.
He's one of my favorite little guys.
Is he? Oh, yay. That's awesome. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for tuning in to you as well, Sandra. We were talking about typical days and kids being wiggly and still being ready for preschool. One of the most common questions that we've gotten when we've done these is about potty training and school readiness. A lot of parents are so stressed about this. So let's just answer it. Does my kid have to be potty trained to go to preschool?
No. They do not at Mathis Early Learning Center. We're potty training a lot. We accept kids as they are. Again, we talk about how we are the ones that need to be ready for them. They don't need to be ready for us. And so we're prepared to, support whatever needs they have. We do a lot of potty training at Mathis if that's, something that a kiddo needs and is ready for. But kiddos, potty train when they're ready. It's something that happens when they're ready and they have to be ready for it. So we don't, it's not a requirement to go to school at Mathis.
Yeah. And not something that should hold you back from getting an assessment or talking to a teacher or anything else. I think potty training is sort of almost unique among parenting struggles, in that so many parents, it's easy to feel embarrassed about it. It's easy to really hate the fact that you're struggling with it and internalize that in some tough ways. And I've been there. It's tough. Potty training is tough. So no educator is going to judge you for having a hard time potty training that kiddo. You're doing great, moms, dads, caregivers out there. So use the school resources that are available to you, and don't let that be a barrier to seeking out education or services, because it's okay. A lot of kids have a hard time with it in preschool, I bet.
Absolutely. It is a common thing. Common.
Mm-hmm. Is there a typical, again, we talked about typical day and what that looks like, and that, that there being a little bit of academic stuff and a lot of play. Is there a certain curriculum that you all use over at Mathis? Tell me a little bit about those resources for families.
Sure. So each of our classrooms, our core curriculum is Big Day for Pre-K. It's a scholastic curriculum. It includes a lot of great classic books that everybody knows. We also have some Tier 2 curriculums that we utilize as well. We have Jumpstart, which is a literacy curriculum. I love our literacy curriculum because it puts actions to letter sounds. It teaches letter sounds and then letter recognition. It's just a really great way. My 3-year-old son again goes to Mathis, and he goes around all the time going like and like doing with the letter sounds. I really like that one. We also have Handwriting Without Tears. It's our handwriting curriculum, our letter shape formation curriculum that we use. And then we have Math Without Tears from that Learning Without Tears kind of umbrella of curriculums that we're utilizing. And then our social emotional curriculum is Second Steps, which is a pretty common social emotional curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So lots of different resources, it sounds like, available to kids. Let's talk a little bit more about literacy. You know, a lot of the purpose of our series and bringing educators together is to really get us thinking about literacy in these young ages, because we think about literacy as being a kindergarten, first grade, second grade skill. And sometimes we don't think about it for preschoolers. But talk to me about what that looks like. How can we get these little kids, preschool and even earlier, excited and set up well to be excited about literacy later on?
Sure. So yeah, it's hard to think about literacy for preschoolers, but we certainly don't mean we're teaching preschoolers to read. But what we do want to do is teach preschoolers to be excited about reading. And so that's kind of what early literacy is about. And so we read a lot of exciting books at preschool, and you know, I think knowing what books to read is really important when you're thinking about, you know, getting your kiddo excited about reading. And just knowing that, you know, a 3-year-old probably isn't going to sit for a super long story. And we really want to make sure that a kiddo's experience around reading is a really positive one. So if your kiddo isn't wanting to sit for the entirety of a Pete the Cat story, you know, don't push it. Find a different story. Maybe find something that's of super high interest to your kiddo, or maybe even just find a shorter story. Maybe find a story that has some, you know, some touch and feel stories, or a lift to flat book that's interactive. I think just trying a lot of different options with your kiddos, and then not giving up when it doesn't work. Just keep trying something else, and don't feel like you have to sit them on your lap and read a really long story just because it's a classic.
Well, that is really empowering, and I think really important. You know, I have, and I mentioned this last week as well, I have a 6-year-old who loved books. And when she was a preschooler, when she was 2 and 3, you know, we're a family of a lot of readers. My husband and I both read a lot, and she would sit on my lap and I could read her books and read her books and read her books and read her books. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was just the best parent ever, right? Because she loves books and it's all me. You take credit when they're doing things that seem like a good idea. My son, who's currently 3, could take or leave books, doesn't care, will not sit ever. I don't think he's sat in my lap and listened to a whole book in his entire life. He's up, he's moving, he's jumping, he's pulling curtains off the walls. He's doing that stuff. Really no interest in books. Mm-hmm. And is that somewhat typical to see kids who are on different ends of that spectrum?
Absolutely. Again, every kiddo is different. You know, some kiddos love to sit and read and cuddle and will read forever if you let them. And some kiddos have absolutely no interest. And I think, again, just meeting the kiddos where they're at is a really important thing. And just know that just because your kiddo isn't sitting for an entire story doesn't mean, you know, that they're odd or, you know, not doing what they need to be doing. You know, finding a way to incorporate literacy in a different way is you know, an option, absolutely, for parents who are struggling with that. You know, letting your kiddo be creative. Maybe instead of, if they don't want to sit and look at a book, maybe telling a story with stuffed animals, or having it be a little more like physically involved. Acting out a story is a really great way for kiddos who are a little more needing to move, you know, is a great way to incorporate literacy. For kiddos that are a little more wiggly.
Yeah, I love that tip about acting out a story. I think that sounds like a lot of fun and something maybe older kids and parents can get into too. That's awesome. Oh, absolutely. Great idea. Let's talk a little bit more about routines. You'd mentioned the importance earlier. I'd written this down because it was something I wanted to go back to. You were talking about how, you know, you have these kiddos who are excited and wiggly and, you know, struggling with separation and whatever other issues they're bringing in. And something that's important for you all at Mathis is establishing a routine so they have some similar things happening every day. Is that useful in the home environment too when we're getting kids for preschool? And we especially have a lot of parents asking about bedtime, you know, as we're going into these months, you know, winter and then summer leading into school. Talk about the importance of routine at home, what that can look like, and especially bedtime stuff. Is that important for kids when they're starting school?
Yeah, absolutely. And, every household is different. And I know that establishing routines can be really difficult. But something that routines can give children is just a sense of knowing what comes next. And that really helps curb anxiety in kiddos that might be a little anxious about, what is going to come next? What is my, day going to look like? So, routines are important for all children and adults. I like routine too. I like to know what's coming next. And so establishing a bedtime routine is really important. Sleep is so important for kiddos, and making sure that they kind of have that wind down time into sleep is important. Making sure that they're able to kind of quiet any anxiety they might be having is important. And bedtime routine can really bring that bring that struggle, kind of turn that struggle around if you're struggling getting your kiddos to sleep. And so, I mean, there are so many different things you can do at bedtime. You just got to think about kind of what works for you. I mean, I think typically, and not even typically, what's typical? Everybody does things different, but, brushing teeth, cuddling up, reading a story, having jammies on, and then even, saying the same things at night to each other is a way that you can kind of build a routine in your bedtime as well. I think it's just really important to recognize that not every family is the same, and your bedtime routine doesn't have to look like everyone else's. But building a routine that works for you is important for your kiddos, and it can be important for you too, especially if your kiddo has trouble, getting into bed when it's time. Bringing some different things in. So they know that after this, it means I lay down, even if it's jumping in your bed 5 times. Okay, let's get up and jump on our bed 5 times. All right, 5 times is over. It's time to lay down and go to sleep. It doesn't have to be, all of the brushing the teeth and putting on the jammies and reading 5 stories and then going to bed. If that's it, then that's wonderful. But doing what works for you is the most important thing. What works for you and your family.
I love that. I love that. You work with such diverse families in terms of their needs and what things are like. And I love that there are different strategies that work for different families and different parents. Kids are so different.
Absolutely.
So moms, dads, caregivers, if what you're doing is working for you, keep doing that. That's awesome. And we're glad, and that's great. Another really common question we get from parents about preschool is school supplies. Do kids need school supplies for preschool, and what kinds of things are they needing?
Sure. So there is a supply list in your enrollment packet that you will get if you choose to enroll at Mathis. And we ask that the kiddos have a full-size backpack. Each of us send home folders. And in order for those folders to fit in the backpack, they have to be full-size. So I know that our 3-year-olds look pretty silly with a whole full-size backpack on.
A backpack the size of a 3-year-old. Yeah.
I promise we're not filling it up with a whole bunch of stuff. It's just nice to make sure everything that we need to fit in there can fit in there. And then we also ask for, a change of clothes. So they have clothes to change into, and make sure you send us clothes for the warmer times of year and clothes for the colder times of year. We ask for pull-ups or diapers and wipes. If, your kiddos are in diapers or pull-ups, we ask for, extra underwear if they're wearing underwear. We ask for cups, Kleenexes, kind of all those typical things that you would expect. We also ask for art supplies. Some kiddos really love, picking out some art supplies to take to their school. That can be a really exciting thing for them. So, anything that you see that your kiddo's excited about, send it with them to school. That's kind of could be a great tool. If your kiddo is nervous about coming to school, let them pick some things that they get to go and take to their teacher on their first day.
I love those tips. Again, it really echoes what you were saying at the beginning about getting kids excited for the school day and the primary function. One of the big primary functions of preschool being just to get kids excited about school and pumped up about the experience. So that seems like a really fun thing for them to do.
Absolutely. It's just the most important thing. This is oftentimes a kiddo's very first experience with any kind of center-based learning, or, what I guess we could call institutional learning. But, it sets the tone for, the rest of their school life. And so just setting out with the intention to, make sure they know that school is a fun, exciting, and safe place is just, the most important thing that we can give children in our program.
Absolutely. You'd mentioned safety, and that reminded me of a question we were talking about before the broadcast, something that you said you'd gotten from parents. And I think especially these days, so many parents, again, we haven't separated much from our kids. So we have heightened concerns about security and safety. What is security like at Mathis? What do you tell parents when they have that question?
Absolutely. So we have 2 entrances to our building, but all entrances remain locked. You have to buzz in and be, let in by our amazing secretary. And you have to check in through the office. Right now during COVID times, if you are allowed in the building, which we aren't allowing, volunteers or parents in our building at this time into classrooms. But anybody that enters the office into the rest of the building has to get a temperature check, has to wear a mask and get hand sanitizer. But really, we do a good job of making sure our building is all locked up and our kiddos are always safe. And just like other public institutions, we do drills to make sure that, we're practicing those safety measures and making sure we are always keeping kids as safe as possible.
Yeah. Safe, happy, healthy, all those important things for kids, and having fun, it sounds like. So anything we've missed, Josie? I want to, because we're getting close to the top of the hour, but are there any other major concerns we haven't really talked about much that parents bring to you, common questions parents have, issues you see a lot with kids? What else do parents need to know?
I think parents just need to know that, our program is a really fun and safe place. And if you're kind of on the fence about whether or not you want to give it a try, call us and schedule a screening and kind of see what our school is like. And, we're always happy to, talk and, reach out to us. We're always happy to talk about our program and any questions you might have. I mean, everybody kind of has different questions and different concerns. So, we're always willing to talk about our awesome programs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to you and your team, not only for being here tonight, joining us after bedtime. Yay, parents, if you got those kids to bed, good job. If you're still working on it, keep doing it. You're doing great. I'm glad you could join us at this late hour to talk a little bit about getting kids ready for preschool and all the awesome things that all of you are doing over at Mathis Early Learning Center. Sounds like you have a really exciting program over there that encourages kids to play and have fun and enjoy school and offers some awesome resources for parents if they have any concerns about developmental delays or additional services that their kids need. So great work. I'm so glad you could join us. Folks, if you have any follow-up questions, give Mathis Early Learning Center a call. We will drop their phone number in the comments to make it super, super easy for you to give them a ring. We won't even make you Google. We will do the Googling on your behalf. We will put that phone number in the comments so you can give them a ring, get your assessment scheduled. Again, if you're in that Seaman district and you've got a 3 or 4-year-old, they're happy to chat with you. So use that resource, give them a ring to get that scheduled, and they will look forward to meeting you and your awesome, awesome little one. Be sure to join us again. We keep doing these lives because we keep having parents with all of these awesome questions who want us to talk to educators and they want to get this information. If you have a suggestion for a professional you would like to see on a future Ask the segment here at the Discovery Center, let us know. We've talked to a lot of different folks. We've talked to educators. We've talked to child psychologists, social service providers. We bring in engineers and those sorts of folks to talk to kids about science. So we've done done a lot of neat Ask the Expert segments. If you have an idea for one, let us know, because the people we bring on come from your ideas, and we'd love to get those and know what people want to see. You tell us to bring them on board, and we'll bring them on board. We'll chat with them and let them answer questions direct and live from you. Next week, we have the third and final in our series of educators who are talking about early literacy and really little kiddos and getting them ready and excited for school. We're going to have Veronica Bird from Parents as Teachers. She's joining us a week and a day. She's joining us on Wednesday on the 17th, same time, 8 p.m. So same bat time, same bat channel. We're going to have Veronica Bird joining us from Parents as Teachers, from Topeka Public Schools, and I'm excited to see what she has to say as well. Josie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was fun. Have a good night, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.